that delivery, sir. I believe the convener, Dr. Kaide, has something to share with us for 2 minutes. Sir, you unmute yourself, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Brother Bolan. This is wonderful. The delivery is superb, and in fact, I learned a lot in this. I just have two remarks or two things that I want you to quickly make a remark on. One is I don't fully agree that those who are leading us right now are clueless. Yeah, that's a common language used to address them, that they are clueless and all of that. But I think they simply, in spite of the fact that they have clues and they have ideas, but they have their agenda,
Yeah.
which may not conform with what we will call the clues that we need. And everyone pursues their agenda with logical details, and they want to actually achieve certain things, which of course they have been. I don't have time to begin to enumerate how they brought down education, brought down healthcare delivery, and all of that. But then let's leave that for another day. So we can't honor or dishonor them, whichever way you want to look at it. We can't honor or dishonor them by saying they are clueless. No, they have clues, but then they have an agenda and they are true to their purpose. So we leave that for another day.
Hello.
However, the second thing I want to, I, am I still on?
You're still on, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the second thing I want to draw your attention to is that, yeah, we're talking about youth advocacy and all of that. Beautiful. But how do we draw this to the focus of this platform, which is a Christ-like life? I know you will argue, or I will agree with you that everything you have said today, if we pursue it, will be like Christ, because we become the salvation in these areas to so many people. But then I don't want us to lose track of what our primary mandate is, to draw people's attention to Christ, the way Christ would do things, and then from there we take it on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry. Oh, briefly before Mr. Bolan comes in, I think we had this conversation I think yesterday or so, where I spoke about the agenda, where I was like, okay, despite how we may see them as opportunists and all, there are people who benefit from poverty in Nigeria. There are people who benefit from the lack of power in Nigeria. So I feel like we had this question. You said something yesterday, and I think it's best coming from you to share that idea again, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That was going to be my premise for the response. You know, I carefully use the word cluelessness, not vaguely as it is as the cliche to every failed government in the past, but simply because I'm looking at from the perspective of service delivery. You know, when you look at the way services have been, you know, social services, you know, political services are being delivered in the country, from the dimension of how a project should be managed, you know, right, starting from even initiating the project, defining the objective of the project, you know, talking about the way the projects are being executed because it had failed at the planning phase, you know, talking about how a project is being monitored and controlled, how a project does not even have a closing, you know. So I look holistically at all of these things, and that's why I imagined that this can simply be tantamount to cluelessness. But I sincerely agree with your posture about that, and it is truth that must be told, because of course not everybody, just like people say that politics are bad, I mean it's bad, and people who are politicians are bad. Of course not all the politicians are bad people, and we must acknowledge that. And I acknowledge the fact that all the policies of government does not necessarily, you know, without you know, getting to a point where we assume and conclusively say that they are clueless. I want us to look at another thing from this perspective. In the scriptures, all the people who had been able to accomplish great feats in their generation, they were youths. starting from Samuel, who was an Ephraimite, talk about Josiah, who was from the tribe of Judah, talk about Timothy, talk about the Rahab, talk about the Daniel and his companies, talk about, Deborah. These are people who ensured that they pursue the purpose for which they had been called. So the challenge that it is for every one of us who is listening, who we're having this conversation today is, like I said, we need to understand our purpose. And when we understand our purpose, we begin to pursue the purpose in line with divine agenda, because God has a purpose. The Bible says that He has a plan and purpose for everyone, and it will surely come to be. So we need to begin to pursue it in that light. But what we have seen over the years is, even the so-called Christians, by the time they get there, because of the system, because the governance, as it were, is a system. So because of the system, chances are that they might lose track, or their stance may fade away and become irrelevant, so to speak. Time will not permit me to make instances of, we have Christians who are currently in governance, but how come their voices are not being heard? How come their impact are not being felt? How come, their ideas are not being propagated? It's because of the system. And that's the more reason why, just like we know, democracy is a game of number. We need more people to be involved. You can't just sit down in the four walls of your homes and be complaining, castigating, and just simply be praying alone. We need to pray and continually pray, then take action. Be part of the process. Be part of the decision making. Be part of at least in the list. Let's do our obligation as a patriotic Nigerian. Let's vote for whoever our conscience pushes us to vote for. I believe these are the things that we need to begin to focus on, so that from there, other avenue and platform begin to open up to us. I'm sure that Buhari, wherever he is, does not know me. But the more I'm vocal, the more I begin to deliver results from my little ways. There might be a way by which, further platform will be created for people to begin to associate with me, not necessarily because they know that I am of this particular religion, but because they know that I can deliver results. And when the opportunity comes, I will act the way I've been raised to act in my religious disposition, because that's where the issue of morality and all that comes in. Time will not permit us for us to begin to look at those perspectives and those dimensions, because all these things are to be premised upon something. We are talking about morality. Morality must have a point of reference. So it's either you have your point of reference, of course, definitely premised on your faith, or in something else. I was saying to someone yesterday, how can you explain this height of immorality? Just because you want to contest for an election, you have to go and bury human being. And you did it for the first time, it didn't work. You did it the second time, and you constantly do it. Or how do you want to explain someone? Simply because you want to become a governor, or you want to hold any political position, you have to go and join, an evil society. It's appalling. It's appalling. So we can't just be criticizing those people. We just have to take a decision and move in, and ensure that we participate in the move, and ensure that we play our own role, so that the darkness that taking over the entire nation, our own light can begin to take away the darkness, because light must shine for darkness to disappear. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Briefly before we move on, I would like to just because we had the conversation, so I'd like to just throw in a few things I got from the conversation yesterday. So, like, from the points you highlighted, you said personal development, volunteering. Now, we know that there's an agenda. That's not news, that these people in leadership have an agenda. Now, it's not just about criticizing them and talking about the agenda. There are ways you could overpower that. Like, for example, now, there's no power in Nigeria. I'm studying renewable energy. On my street alone, if I'm able to develop something that will power my street, just my street, 24/7 power, like no interruptions, that somebody else somewhere will see it with the same capability and be like, if this guy, why not? Before there's a ripple effect, and then there's power almost everywhere. If education, that's like that, I did the slum to school, that's just one person. If more people like that start to contribute their own quota, not just about saying, okay, there's an agenda, but contribute your own quota in solving issues around you. That's all you need to do to create a larger ripple effect. If I solve my own problem around me and somebody else solves his problem around him, and somebody else solves problem around you, you realize that, okay, there is a much more meaningful nation because the people are taking matters into their hands and not depending on just the government that are agenda driven. Now, the second question, my dad, sir? Sir?
Yes, please go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead, please.
and as Christians, the purpose is to draw more people to Christ. And the best way you can draw people to Christ is by living the life of Christ.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about going to, if other people around me know I'm a Christian, they see me carry my Bible every day to church, and they still see me on Monday to Friday doing things that benefit society, volunteering, just doing things that will benefit people around me. They will want to know, okay, what's giving this guy so much confidence to do this, or is giving him so much enthusiasm to do this. They want to know more, and that would be your opportunity to say, okay, I know somebody, it's called Christ. Live the life that will make people want to ask questions as to why you are doing things. That way you can draw people to Christ. Or what do you think, sir?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And that has been my stance over the years. It's not just all about you talking. People wants to see. They want to see the reflection of the things that you stand for, the reflection of the things you uphold, through you. So there are millions of people I may never in my life get to speak with, that may never even get to hear, despite the advance in technology and all that, see me in person to hear me, but they can definitely get to hear about the reflection of, the result from my life. Just like I told you, from places where I've worked, the track records are there, and not just only where I worked. All the clientele that we worked for, people that I never even met, once they hear, oh, this person worked there, oh, we knew the project he executed, oh, we knew it was, and all that. So those are facts. They are truths that cannot be denied. And we must encourage ourselves, because like I said, it all boils down to projecting morality. Because when you truly know whom you believe, you know that Jesus is truly your Lord. You want to be like him in everything. In everything. You don't want to leave any aspect of your life and say, oh, it is only when you go to church that you wear the Christian garments. And on Monday to Friday, when you're at work, you put off and it's like it's another thing. Everybody is struggling. It's all about hustling. And whatever it takes, you just want to hustle. And no, that is not the kind of life we are talking about. And this is not the kind of life that will deliver the new Nigeria that we are all dreaming of, because it has not helped us. This has always been what has been at playing. So we need people who will resolutely take their stand and remain the light that God has made them to be. Because that was exactly what Jesus did when he was on earth. He defiled all odds. They castigated him. They even abused him for relating with the blind, relating with sinners and all that. But he knew his purpose was to bring salvation to these people. So the question I will keep asking Christians, because I won't stop asking that question, is, do we really understand our purpose as Christians? Because God did not call us to be attending church every Sunday. That is not just the reason why he made us be Christians. Because how can you just be a Christian in church on Sunday and you are not a Christian in your office? Because it starts from there. And you're not a Christian even in your neighborhood, in your community. People cannot associate with you with the likeness of Christ. So by the time there is need for people to bring about solution, they won't call on you, because they've not seen the reflection of Christ in your life. So that is a good dimension that we must all accept. The other thing that I want to mention is this. When you look at the life of David, this was a man that emerged at a critical time in Israel. They were going to face a war. Goliath was going to decimate this nation, was going to kill, their army and destroy and, take over the nation. This man emerged. If you look critically about how he went about bringing about the success, bringing about the victory for his nation, he did not, just run out and boasted on the fact that, yes, I'm a Christian, this and that. No. through his action, and by the time he confronted Goliath, he never even had to announce to the whole world that he is of God before everybody knew that this man was actually called by God, because he conquered Goliath by the power of God. He conquered Goliath. He decimated Goliath through the power of God. And that is exactly what we too must emulate. Yes, we have Christ living in us. But what are the problems that we are taking the Christ inside of us to go and solve in the world? What are the wars? What are the struggles? What are the battles that we are taking the power of Christ in us to go and solve in the world? The Lord will help us.
Amen. Amen.
Please, there are quite a lot of comments in the chat box.
Yeah,
So maybe
I wanted to draw your
so that we'll
attention.
now round up.
I wanted to draw your attention to that, and one very clear one I picked from the contributions of Abdulaziz and Uncle Wemi, that the real problem is the system. That no matter how much we converse that we should take over power or get involved, if we don't change the system, anyone who gets there will run by the system, and then the system will corrupt them. And very interestingly, even drew our attention to Tinubu, who is being criticized in some quarters today, that many years back, he was an advocacy for change and all of that. So what went wrong? So I think we, in our future conversations, because I don't know if you have enough time to handle that tonight, but then in our future conversations, I think we should look critically at this issue of system. How do we create or influence or change the system that we bring about the change that we're really looking forward to? So that's a summary of the major things in the chat box.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Before we go, there's this I saw one question just popped up in the chat box. I think is a very, very good one. So I think we should just deal with that before we close the platform. It says, and I read, if the youth we are need to be encouraged to be more involved in leadership and better followership, how can the issue of fake news or misdirected information be conquered on social media, which is the biggest platform to engage this generation?
Okay, thank you. I know that it's a burning issue, it's a burning conversation.
Yeah.
Generally around the world, not just peculiar to Nigeria. You know, there are even countries that are already going through the process of legislating. Like if you go to China, there are some social media platforms that you cannot open when you're in China and all that. So it's very, very pertinent that we also understand the dimension that is applies to us. Let's look at what brought about the agitation about fake news. You know, you can look at it from political dimension, and you can look at it from social dimension. What is really thriving on the conversation platform at the moment is political dimension, the political perspective to it. So how do you solve the problem using political tools? The government currently is canvassing to pass a bill to, control social media activities and all that. I totally agree with that. But the truth of the matter is we are talking about a system that is corrupted, a system that has failed to deliver services that fail to deliver simply because of their agenda, simply because of their selfishness. How will such system bring about a selfless policy that will ensure equity in the use of social media? So for me, at this current moment, I'm not sure that we'll be able to get a reasonable solution using political dimension. But generally, if you look at it psychologically, how can you, because fake news is all about lies. So how can you conquer lie? Is ensuring that truth is being celebrated, truth is being propagated. I'm sure that if our political leaders understand the importance of delivering truth, and not just delivering truth as that when truth should be delivered to the populace, I'm sure that whoever is going to propagate lies will have ensured that truth that is up there in social media, decimates lies. An example is what happened in Lekki. In as much as I wouldn't have loved to talk about it, but it's something that must be talked about. We all knew how the whole scenario, transpired, and within 24 hours, nothing was coming from the government. by the time the government representatives were talking, we're hearing like 4 or 5 different information, of which we don't even know which one is to be held as truth. The governor said several things, the political leaders were saying other things, and all that. The military came, they said several things. And here you have the masses who are also giving them their own information. And up to now, the truth has not even been established on this thing. So it's very dicey, and so the truth, as it were, whoever is the custodian of the truth over any issue should understand that that truth must be celebrated, must be propagated. Otherwise, when you delay truth for a second or for even a pike of time, be rest assured that lies will fly around, and lies travels faster than truth.
Yes.
Lies travels faster than truth. I used to ask people, in the past dispensation, we have this constant engagement with the government through the Ministry of Information. How much of that have we had in the past 4, 5, 8 years? Because these are the people who are more or less the custodian and the voice of the federal executive. So how much of that had happened? You even have the Ministry of, what's it called, the Department of Social Orientation domiciled within this ministry. So how much engagement have they had with the community? So can we just start from that point and then move over? Because if you start from the top, it might collapse the entire system. And that's what I think can help us in Nigeria.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that, sir. Well, it's been a night, a very enlightening night, and a very insightful one. And the conversation of youth and national transformation is not just a topic we can all discuss in one night. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope everyone has beginned 1 or 2 things added to the one we already know from this night. And I hope that we continue to engage in these conversations and also actively participate in what we can do, contributing our own quota in developing the country. I'm going to put up our mail in the chat box, so you can send us a mail. If you have any question, any contribute, any idea at all as regards this conversation, send us a mail and you will be replied, and hopefully your ideas will be the next thing to solve so many issues in the community. Thank you so much for joining us this night. We really appreciate everyone who has taken the time to join us this night. God bless you all, and we pray that the glory of the Lord will not depart from our midst in Jesus' name.